Hi everybody, this is chapter 11, putting words to work. In our speeches, we're using the English language. Apparently, we can use other languages, but here we're going to talk about words. Words have the power to shape our perception, to shape opinion, to bring up feelings, to unite listeners, to separate listeners, and move people to action. So we will try to understand what distinguishes an oral style of language, of using words, as opposed to written. And we will explore some basic principles of the effective use of language for extemporaneous presentations. That means not from a script, and explore some specific techniques that we can use to magnify the power of our messages and our voices as public speakers. What can words accomplish? Words can do a lot, as we know. Sharing perceptions is putting the audience member in your place, having another person see the world through your eyes, through the speaker's eyes. Bringing up feelings, it is the pathos in Aristotle's rhetoric. Remember, we said ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos being the credibility of the source of the speaker. Pathos, the feelings, the emotional, poetic appeal, and logos, the logic. So pathos is what words do best, bring up emotions. And we said that bringing audiences together, how does that work? If people share a meaning, if people share an understanding of the meaning of a word, saying a word can act as a signal, as a code, to invoke the same reaction from a variety of types of people who are in your audience. And moving people to action, of course, it is something that words can do, because you can say, let's pick up our phones, call this number, make a contribution, so that is closing your message. So what are some of the characteristics of oral speech as compared to written language? Oral is always less formal, so I would encourage you to use informal language when you write your speeches. Oral language is more colorful. So in some of your speeches, the information was there, but I was encouraging you to include more detail, more description, more color, names, situations, where did these people come from, what were they like, what were they wearing. Oral language is absolutely more personal. It is as if the speaker is directly addressing you. It is more interactive. You can always hear back from your audience members. You can invite them to give you feedback, to answer you. Oral language uses simpler words because those are more effective, simple, powerful verbs and nouns that are easy to say, easy to hear. And we use repetition as a rhetorical method to hammer the message down, and using it strategically instead of making things more repetitive, redundant, we make them more effective. Oral language uses more examples and narratives. It is permissible because you're talking to someone. You're allowed to tell a story. Whereas when you're writing, you just get to the point. And oral language has to be understood right away. You're not given the luxury of allowing your audience members to go and do research as they listen to you, because they do not have that time. Okay, so the basic principles of oral speech is what you see is what you say. I've mentioned this already. Make your notes exactly the way they need to be said. Don't make any corrections on paper. If you're going to make a correction, block it out completely, because if something's deleted, scratched out in handwriting, it creates a mess that is hard to decipher. Do not staple your papers if you're using paper to make a speech, but shuffle them one after another. Once you're done reading a page, just put it aside without extra noise. Remember that those microphones can be pretty sensitive and they will pick up the shuffling sounds. I know this from working in radio, that easy page turning allows you to be more fluent in your speech and less distracted for the audience and for you. So arrange your pages in a loose stack and move the top page after you're done reading from it to the side. to see the next one. And needless to say, reading from the screen also make it visible, make it clear. The fonts and spacing needs to be comfortable to your eye. Use appropriate fonts, the styles, Arial or others. I prefer Times New Roman. I mentioned in another conversation with you, Times New Roman is my standard typing font, but I would encourage you to find yours, whatever is better for your eyes. And if you need to use all caps, go for it by all means. So when you're printing your speech, print them in a way that makes it easy to read. So the 6 C's of oral speech are clarity, conciseness, color, concreteness, correctness, and cultural sensitivity. We can talk about each of them separately, but they're self-explanatory. Your speech needs to consist of clear words. The clearer sentences, the shorter, the clearer the sentences. Don't use complex clauses, because in actual time, people are having a hard time following your thought. If they start paying attention in the middle of your paragraph, they will be lost. But instead of that, just be very precise, concise, and clear. So conciseness, we know that it's just saying what you mean specifically. Color, use more description. Metaphors, etc., as we will see in a moment, they can help you give more color. Be concrete. Don't use too many abstract ideas, but speak of concrete things. And a method for that, we said that a technique would be examples, narratives, expert testimony, numbers, statistics. Those are concrete elements that ground your speech in reality. Correctness. You're not allowed to bring up gossip, opinion. Opinion should be presented as such. In somebody's opinion, such and such is the case. And finally, cultural sensitivity. Don't use jargon, don't use dialects, don't use the way people speak, especially accents of foreigners in a mocking way. Don't use jokes, definitely. So culturally, you need to be very sensitive not to offend by building your statements, your message. Not to say things, if you're speaking to an audience that may include people of other genders, be careful not to offend anybody with, let's say, if we're talking about family, not to be heteronormative or not to exclude people who are minorities. So culture means many different things in our society today and the global society as well. Be aware of diverse audiences, and always remember that your audience members can be from very diverse groups of population. As an example, if you were making a speech about 2 countries and depicting one of the countries in very negative terms, you may end up having an audience member representing that country. So be sure that your language is objective, that you're not coloring your speech with inappropriate emotions, negativity, hate, demeaning speech, but rather putting things in very objective and unbiased form so that everyone can benefit and learn from your message. Finally, we have a whole list of linguistic techniques, and those techniques are brought up in research methods in semiotic analysis, as if you have taken inquiry type courses, but I will not go very deeply into detail because here is a chart in which you can find the tools that you need: metaphors, similes, personification, ideographs, thesis, antithesis, alliteration, things that are used in literature, but you can use them effectively in your oral speech as well, because those are known for a reason. Those work. For example, metaphors, figurative comparisons, and if you make them unexpected, an iron curtain you can say Iron Curtain has descended across the continent. It is a cliche, but it is a pretty well-known cultural idiom, if you want. And there are many other types of linguistic tools that you can use, words that are already commonplace in certain cultures. You need to know what will your audience understand properly and without the need to explain. So that was our chapter 11 from Osborne, and I would really hope that you can read this part, especially about the linguistic techniques, in more detail and refer to it when you're writing your speeches.